Hello, everybody, and welcome to chapter 19 of the book of Bereishit as we continue to travel through Tanach. Chapter 19 has 38 verses and it's found in the Koren Sachs Chumash on page 114 and 115. In this dramatic chapter, the city of Sodom gets destroyed by two of the three angels who had been to visit Avraham and Sarah. The two angels start by arriving in Sodom, where they are welcomed by Lot, who insists on hosting them despite the city's corruption. And in fact, the people of Sodom learn that Lot might be harboring these guests, and they surround the house, revealing the depths of their moral decay. Soon enough, though, the angels rescue Lot and his family and warn them to flee before the city's destruction. Sodom and Gomorrah are destroyed by fire and sulfur, and Lot's wife disobeys the command not to look back, and the Torah tells us that she is turned into a pillar of salt as a punishment. Lot escapes to the mountains, and the chapter ends with a very disturbing episode involving Lot's daughters, who act out of fear that humanity will not continue. With that introduction in mind, let's turn together towards chapter 19, verse 1. Vayovo shnei hamalachim Sodoma. The two angels arrived at Sodom, ba'erev in the evening. Velot yoshev b'shar Sodom, and Lot was sitting at the city gates of Sodom. Vayar Lot, and Lot saw them. Vayakam nikrosam, and he got up to greet them. Vayishtachu apayim arza, and he bowed his face to the ground. Why is Lot sitting at the entrance to the gates? It seems that he has actually learned a thing or two from Avraham, and he does have some good hospitable character traits, which he is putting into use here. Verse 2, Vayomer, and he said, Hine na Adonai, please, my lords, suru na el beis avdachem. Turn about, please, to your servant's house. Velinu v'rachatsu raglechem. Stay the night and wash your feet. V'hishkamtem v'halachtem ledarkachem. And then you can go on your way early in the morning. Vayomeru, and they said to him, Lo, ki varchov nalin. No, we will spend the night in the square. Lots to say about this interaction. Why does he invite them to stay the night and then wash their feet? Abraham did it the other way around. He invited them to wash their feet first. One of the possible answers to this is because Lot knew how bad the people of Sodom were. And if they found out that Lot was inviting these people to stay, he would be in great trouble. And so, by telling them to hold off from washing their feet, he will always be able to fall back on the answer that, in fact, these guests have just arrived and haven't yet had a chance to do anything. And this would protect him from any further possible repercussions. And why is there this interesting conversation about whether to stay in his house or whether to sleep on the street? Why would someone opt to sleep on the street? So the sources flesh out for us what the sins of Sodom were. They were an extremely cruel people. They were cruel to strangers. They had institutionalized injustice. They had policies against helping the poor and helping people that were in need. They punished people who performed acts of kindness. And that's even before you get onto the risks of sexual violence. This is the backdrop to understanding the problems with Sodom. We continue with verse 3. Vayitza bam ma'od, but he was so insistent. Vayasuru elav, and they followed him. Vayavo el beison, they came to his house. Vayas lahem mishteh, and he made a feast for them. Umatzos afar vayochelu, and he baked matzahs for them, and they ate. Why is he making matzah? Our rabbis point out that this is because it's actually Pesach time. Verse 4, Terem yishkavu, they had not yet gone to bed. Va'anshe ha'ir, anshe Sodom, nosabu al habayis. When all of the townsmen, all the men of Sodom, surrounded the home, mina'ar va'ad sakem, from the young to the old, Kola'am Mikatse, all the people came from every quarter. What's the verse trying to tell us here? It's trying to tell us that there are actually no righteous people in Sodom. They are all coming out to threaten these guests. Verse 5, Vayikru el Lot, Vayomru lo. They called to Lot and said, Ayeha anashim asher ba'u elecha halayla. Where are the men who came to you tonight? Hotziem eleinu v'neida'a osam. Bring them out to us so that we may know them. This word v'neida'a osam, so that we can know them. This is connected to Adam Yada. es Chava. Adam knew his wife Chava. There is an intimacy that is implied with this word, v'neida'a. They didn't just want to get to know the guy and invite him out for a drink. They wanted to do something far more sinister to him. Verse 6, Vayetze alehem Lot hapescha. Lot went out to speak to them by the doorway. Vahadeles sagar acharav, and he shut the door behind him. Vayomar, and he said, Al na achai tareu. Brothers, please do not do this evil. Verse 8, Hine nali shtei vanos asher lo yadu ish. I have two daughters who have never known a man. Otziana esen alechem. Let me bring them out to you. Va'asu lahen katov be'einechem, and you can do what you like with them. Rak la'anashim ha'el, but to these men, al ta'asu davar, don't do anything to them. Ki al kain ba'u b'tzel karasi, for they have come under the protection of my roof. What is going on here? Why is Lot giving up his daughters? And the sources explain that actually they were married, and he felt that his options were so limited that at the very least he can send out these daughters and leave it up to the husbands to fight for them. And yet we see this is not what happened. Verse 9, Vayomaru, and they said, Gesh hal'ah, stand back. Vayomaru, and then they said, Ha'echad ba lagur, this man has come to live here. Vayishpot shafot ata, and now he is setting himself up as a judge. Nara lacha mehem, we will treat you worse than them. Vayifsaru va'ish balot ma'od, they pressed hard against Lot. Vayigshu lishbor hadalas, and they moved forward to break down the door. Verse 10, Vayishlechu ha'anashim es yadam, but the men reached out their hands, Vayaviu es Lot alehem abaisa, and they pulled Lot back into the house, Ves hadeles sagaru, and they shut the door behind him. Verse 11, Ves ha'anashim asher pesach habayis, and the men who were at the entrance of the house, Hiku v'sanverim mikaton v'ad gadol, they were all struck with blindness, the young and the old. Vayil'u limso hapasach, and they tried in vain to find the entrance. Verse 12, Vayomru ha'anashim elot, and the men said to Lot, Od mi lechafo, who else do you have here? Chasan, sons-in-law, uvanecha, your sons, uvnosecha, your daughters, v'chol asher lecha ba'ir, all that you have in the city, hotzei min hamakom. Get them out of here. Ki mashchisim anachnu es hamakom hazeh, because we are about to destroy this place. Ki gadlat tza'akasam es pnei Adonai, for their outcry has been so great before Hashem. Vaishalchenu Adonai l'shachasa, and Hashem has sent us to destroy it. Verse 14, Vayetze Lot, and Lot went out, Vaydaber al Chasanav, and spoke to his sons-in-law, Lot Chevenosav, those who were taking his daughters, Vayomer, and he said, Kumu tsu'u min hamakom hazeh, get up and leave this place, ki mashtis Adonai esa'ir, for Hashem is about to destroy the city. Vayhi kemetzachek be'einei Chasanav, but his sons-in-law just laughed. Verse 15, Ufamo hashacha Allah, as dawn was breaking, v'ya'itzu ha'malachim belot lemor, the angels hurried to Lot, saying, Kum, get up, kaches ishtacha, take your wife, ve'es shtei v'nosecha, and your two daughters, hanimtzaos, who are here with you, pentis safer ba'avon ha'ir, or you will be swept away because of the sin of the city. Verse 16, Vayis mama, and still he hesitated. And if you have a look on top of this word, you will see a squiggly note. This is called the shalsheles. This is a very rare note indeed, and it's a very lengthy note to sing when one is reading from the Torah, and it symbolizes Lot's hesitation to trust the angels. Vayachaziku ha'anashim biyado, so the men seized him, uviyad ishto, and his wife, uviyad shtei v'nosav, and his two daughters. He seized them all by the hand, b'chemlas Adonai alav, in Hashem's mercy on him, vayotziuhu vayanichuhu michutz la'ir, and led them safely outside the city. Verse 17, Vayihi kachotzia mosam hachutza, as soon as they had brought them out, Vayomer, one of them said, Himalet al nafshecha, run for your life. Al tabit acharecha, do not look back. Va'al ta'amod b'chol hakikar, do not stop anywhere in this plain. Hahara himalet pentis safer, flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away. Vayomer Lot alehem, but Lot said to them, Al na Adonai, no, my lords, please. Verse 19, Hinena matzah avdachachen be'einecha, your servant has found favor in your eyes. Vatagdel chastecha asher asisa imadi. And you have done me great kindness, lahachayos es nafshi, in saving my life. Va'nochi lo uchal limalei tahara. I cannot flee to the mountains. Pentit bakani hara'ah vamati. The disaster would overtake me, and I would die. Our rabbis explain that he is getting nervous here, that while in the city of Sodom, he is considered a very righteous person and perhaps be worthy of being saved. But if he runs away and his pit against Avraham, then he will surely be judged as an evil person by comparison, and he would also suffer a punishment. Verse 20. Hinena ha'ir hazos krova lanus shama v'hi mitzar. He says there is a town here close enough for refuge. It is small. Imalta na shama. Let me flee there. Halom itzahi. Is it not small? Uschi nafshi. So that I might survive. Verse 21. Vayomer elav. And he said to him, Hine nasasi fanecha gam ladavar hazeh. Very well, I will grant you this request also. Levilti hafchi esa'ir asher dibarta. I will not overthrow the town of which you speak. Verse 22. Maher, but be quick. Himalet shama, flee to there. Ki lo uchal la'asos davar ad boacha shama. Because I cannot do anything until you reach it. Al Kain, says the Torah. Therefore, kara shem ha'ir so'ar. That is why the town is called Soar, because of the connection between this word Soar and Mitzar, which we had a couple of verses ago, which means small. Hashemesh Yatsa al Haaretz. The sun had risen over the land, Velot ba Tsoara, and Lot reached Soar. Verse 24, Vadonai himtir al Sodom va'al Amorah. Hashem rained down on the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, Gofris va'esh, sulfur and fire, me'es Adonai min hashemayim, from Hashem out of the heavens. Vayahafoch es ha'arim ha'el ve'es kol ha'kikar, and he overthrew those cities and the whole plain, ve'es kol yoshvei ha'arim, and all the cities' inhabitants, v'tzelach ha'adamah, and the vegetation on the land. V'tabet ishto me'acharav. But Lot's wife looked back, Vatahi netziv melach, and she was turned into a pillar of salt. Vayash came Avraham baboker. Avraham rose early the next morning, El hamakom asher amad sham es panei Adonai, and returned to the place where he had stood before Hashem. Verse 28, Vayashkef, that word again, to look out. Vayashkef al panei Sodom, he looked down towards Sodom va'amara and to Gomorrah, V'al kol panei eretz hakika, and to all the land of the plain. Vayar, and he saw, V'hinei Allah kitor haaretz kekitor hakivshan. He saw thick smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a kiln. Verse 29, Vayihi b'shaches Elohim esarei hakikar. So it was that when Hashem destroyed the cities of the plain, Vayizkor Elohim es Avraham, that he remembered Avraham. Vayishalach es Lot mitoch ha'hafecha, and he brought Lot out of the overthrow, Bahafoch es ha'arim, that overturned the cities, Asher yoshav bahen Lot, where Lot had lived. Verse 30, Vayal Lot mitzor, Lot went up from Tsar, Vayeshev bahar, and settled in the hills. Ushtei v'nosavimon, his two daughters were with him, ki yarei lasheves b'tzor, because he was afraid to stay in Tsar. Vayeshev b'ma'ara, hu ushtei v'nosav. He and his two daughters settled in a cave. Verse 31, Vatomer habachira el hatzeira. The older daughter said to the younger daughter, Avinu zakein, our father is old. Ve'ish ein ba'aretz, and there is no man left on earth. Lavo aleinu kederech kol haaretz, and there's no man in the land to marry us in the usual manner. It seems the daughters thought that the whole world had been destroyed once again, and they were the sole survivors. Verse 32, L'chal nashke es avinu yain, let us get our father drunk with wine, v'nishkava imo, and then we'll sleep with him, v'nechayeh me'avinu zara, and we will raise a new generation through our father. Verse 33, Vatashkena es avihen yain balaylahu. That night they gave their father wine to drink, vatavo habachira, vatishkav es aviha, and the elder daughter went in and slept with him. V'lo yadan, he was unaware, b'shichva uvkuma, when she lay down and when she arose. Verse 34, Vayihi mimacharas, and the next day, Vatomer habachira el hatzeira. The older sister said to the younger sister, Hein shachati emesh asavi. Last night I slept with my father, nashkenu yain gam halayla, let's get him drunk again tonight, Uvoishit imo, and you can go in and sleep with him. Unachayem me'avinu zara, and then we can preserve our family line through our father. Verse 35. Vatashkena gam balayla hahu es avihen yayin. So that night they got their father drunk again. Vatakam hatseira vatishkavimo, and the younger daughter got up and slept with him. V'lo yada b'shichva uvkuma, and again he was unaware when she lay down and when she arose. Vataharena shtei v'nos Lot me'avihen, and both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father from these encounters. Although there is a startling difference between them, because while perhaps he could have been forgiven and excused for not knowing about their intentions by getting him drunk on the first night, he certainly should have realized it by the second night, and yet he didn't do anything about it. Continuing with verse 37, Vateled habachira ben vatikra shemo Moav. The elder daughter had a son, whom she named Moav, hu avi Moav ad hayom. He is the ancestor of the Moabites of today. This is also the ancestor of Mashiach, because Rus is a descendant of Moab, and Rus ends up being the ancestor of David HaMelech, who ends up producing the Davidic line, which will lead to the Mashiach ben David. So out of this bizarre, incestuous encounter, we are literally sowing the seeds for what will become the Messianic era. And finally, verse 38, Vatsira gam hi yalda ben. The younger daughter also had a son, but Tikra shemo ben Ami, whom she named Ben Ami, who avi v'nei Ammon ad hayom, and he is the ancestor of Ammon, of the Ammonites of today. And that's all for chapter 19. In chapter 20, we'll go back to talking about Avraham, and we will read about Sarah being abducted by Avimelech, and there will be certain things that seem familiar to us from a previous chapter when Avraham and Sarah were down in Egypt. But that's all for today. Look forward to learning chapter 20 with you next time. In the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful day.